Greetings, welcome to another Rick's Rant, and I haven't been able to rant for a little over a week, but I want to get back on track. We've had so much going on in the country, the incredible, assassination of Charlie Kirk, one of the brightest lights, I think rising young lights in our time. And someone who is, I think, was definitely of presidential material and could have been president. I know Trump told him that. And it's an extraordinary young man of an extraordinary education, his knowledge, but also his discernment to separate useless knowledge from what is really important, what is timely. Now, he didn't get this all from school, even though we found out after his death he had taken many courses from Hillsdale College and an extraordinary amount, probably equal to, more than a undergraduate degree or, bachelor's degree. But he was mostly self-educated. And I appreciate that because that was my experience. Now, I was in the military and received the GI Bill benefits, which I used to get my aviation ratings. I didn't go through college, your typical college. I went through the, technical school of learn to be a pilot. And I was a commercial pilot for a number of years. I say commercial, I made my living flying as a professional pilot. I didn't fly with an airline, but I had my own air charter service at the time. And before that, I flew for some major corporations, their corporate aircraft. But, and that was a very useful education. And I did, to become a flight instructor, I had to get a teacher's degree or a certificate. They told us it was the same that any teacher of any subject had to get at the time. And I was really fascinated with what we learned getting that certificate about teaching, but I was basically self-educated too. I read more than any other human being I knew of at the time, and most others that I've ever met. I just loved the written word. I loved history. I loved things like that. And I studied things. I studied science. I studied physics, astronomy, some other things. But I didn't do it in a course. I did it out of pure love for the subject. I just wanted to understand. I just wanted to know. And therefore, I didn't take very good notes and all. I was just, I wasn't thinking about writing or anything on these subjects later. I just wanted to know them, understand them. But maybe that helps us to learn the best of all, that we're learning out of a love of knowledge, a love of the truth, a love of certain subjects. And it says, we're told in 1 Corinthians 13:8, love never fails. I believe it is the greatest motivator. Now, I did study things that I didn't love. I wasn't studying out of love, but I felt like out of a necessary understanding. I studied some of the darkest times in human history. I studied how the Nazis took over Germany, such a brilliant, cultured country. how could something like that happen? And by studying that, I got to know some of the foremost authorities on those subjects, and became very good friends with one who was considered for a while, maybe still is, maybe the foremost authority on what happened in Nazi Germany. How did the Nazis take over such a country and do the damage that they did to that country and the world? I didn't enjoy studying that, but I felt like it was necessary because I felt that the same things were going to try to take over America. And I say the same things, the same spiritual forces. And that's what we war against, spiritual forces of wickedness. And the friend of mine who became known for a while as possibly the foremost authority on Nazi Germany was Colonel Eugene Byrd. Many of you have heard me talk about him, maybe heard others. He was the commandant of the Spandau prison that housed all the Nazi war criminals after the Nuremberg trials. And he became very close, got to know very well Rudolf Hess, Albert Speer, von Schirach, who was the founder and head of the Nazi, the Hitler Youth, and many other of the really famous and well-known. And the Nazis, they had the most influence over what unfolded in those times. And he did it from a perspective of, we've got to understand this. This is just the devil's dress rehearsal. That's what he thought. That he's going to try to pull this off on many other countries, and especially America. He was an American. He was one of America's elite soldiers in World War II. I believe he was the first American into Berlin after the Russians captured it. The Soviets captured Berlin. And he became very influential in helping restore Germany to their greatness, to their industrial greatness, all the other things they were. And I think he was very instrumental in helping them understand what had happened to them and how it could have happened to any country in the world, and to just accept what happened to them and learn from it. Don't cover it up, but learn from it to help the rest of the nations of the world not to have that happen. Now, saying that now because I do believe that some of the forces that are working in America right now are some of those same spiritual forces. And I wrote a book on Marxism, how Marxists were seeking to take over America. And I took it from their own writings and from the writings of Skousen, who wrote The Naked Communists, that sold in the millions. After he wrote it, it became the go-to manual for the CIA, the FBI, and almost any American to understand the communist strategy for taking over America. Needs to be that again. I've been encouraged to talk to a few people lately who are reading that now and learning from it. I was with Cameron and Susie last night. Susie is reading it, learning a lot. And but we do. This really has all the hallmarks. What's happening in our country now has the hallmarks more of Marxism than of Nazism. But both are mixed in. They're all evil, and they all work together. And but we really need to understand Marxism and be able to discern its influence. It is just about, it came very close to completely taking over our education system, the media, arts and entertainment. Marxism, Marxist philosophy was sown throughout many of these things, and our kids were indoctrinated with it. But almost no one, even those who were doing the indoctrinating, didn't understand it as Marxism. That's one thing the Marxists, true Marxists, try to hide, that they are Marxists and that what they're empowering and educating and indoctrinating others to push on others, that they don't want them to know that this is Marxism. They don't want them to understand what they're doing. It's a very hidden thing, but it's very prevalent. And, one question I get asked probably more than any other question is, do I still believe in the dream that I had in 2018 about the coming Second American Revolution / Civil War? Never doubted that dream. Matter of fact, I see the factors emerging more and more that are seeking to bring that to pass. But the encouragement of that dream was it ended with me seeing in this fiery script that the Second American Revolution / Civil War was inevitable, it was right, and it would be successful. Excuse me, my dogs are agreeing with me. No, they're hearing noises upstairs. But anyway, yes, I do believe absolutely. I've never doubted, and I've almost continually seen evidence of us, heading for that in America. But what I was shown that dream, it would be successful, the good, and the things that should have been accomplished in our American Revolution and Civil War that were not accomplished would be accomplished with what would unfold. And we would truly be a place where there was liberty and justice for all, not just some. And we would start to fulfill our ultimate purpose for which I believe God created us as a nation. And if you're if you get my word for the week, which is put out on the internet, and I believe you can subscribe to it, no cost. Just send in your email and contact information. They'll be sent to you every week, free of charge, that have been covering the book of Revelation, been laying a very broad and deep foundation for understanding the things that are coming up. And I'm just now starting to work on writing some of the most important things that we understand for these times that were a history written in advance in the book of Revelation. All this stuff was foretold. And once you understand some of the factors and what these symbols mean, it makes perfect sense, and you can see it happening right now. But I'm addressing that in the word for the week. But take that, subscribe to it. I believe you can do it on our website, or just contact our ministry. They'll show you how to do it. But we're really getting into the meat of some of the important things and revelations from that book. And that's one of the main reasons I moved back to Moravian Falls. I had been inquiring of the Lord of how badly we need to really understand the books of Daniel and Revelation. And I never expected to get the full understanding of either of those, because we know in part, we see in part, but I wanted to get as much as I could that would help others to understand other parts, maybe lead to their understanding. And but we need the full understanding of the books at this time. And I was asking the Lord to send the angels that met with Daniel, that taught him and explained to him what he was seeing, and also to John, the Revelator, the Apostle John. I asked him, send those same angels and let me sit down with them and talk and have them teach me what is really going on. I think we need that on that level. We need assurance of the meaning of these on that level. And whoever else has a piece of this, send them to them too. But we've really got to understand those books at this times. But anyway, when I had that dream about the coming Second American Revolution / Civil War, I really thought that was well into the future, maybe well beyond my time here on earth. I guess that was wishful thinking, hopeful thinking, but it's unfolding faster. And soon after I received that dream in 2018, I got the sense this is happening faster than I had supposed, that this is really coming upon us. And I think it has continued. It may have even sped up some. But I feel like the Lord has it of course he does. He has everything in control. He knows exactly the outcome. And I believe he's got the right leadership in the right positions. And any that aren't will get changed out soon. But this really is upon us. So that leads to, how do we prepare for it? First thing, don't speculate. We say revolution, a lot of people are going to think, well, how are we going to have another revolution like the first one? That where we basically, get our independence from Britain or whatever. That's done. It's not going to be like that one. It's not, the Second American Revolution is not going to be like that one in some very basic ways. And neither is the Second American Civil War going to be like the first Civil War. It's not going to be pitched battles of armies. What I saw in that dream was most of it was within cities. The overwhelming degree of fighting was in cities, neighborhoods, fighting neighborhoods, one block fighting the next block, and there were forces and there were things behind the fighting that I think the Lord's going to expose a lot of this before it unfolds. And my prayer has been that these do not have to be as devastating as they could be, that reduce the casualties, the destruction, but they have to be fought in a way so as to win and to absolutely determine we will be a nation where there is liberty, where there is freedom, where that isn't lost, and justice for everyone. That was what I was shown was the purpose of the first American Revolution, and it didn't happen. I mean, a whole millions of people, Americans at the time, weren't even considered Americans and weren't even considered people for a time. I'm talking about the slaves, the horrendous things that happened, and how far from the ideal that we had written in our own Declaration of Independence and our own founding documents, how far from that we were because of racism. Because, yeah, we have a racist past. But guess what? Ours wasn't nearly as bad as some other countries, but it was awful. And racism is one of the ultimate evils of the human heart that we've got to get free of. You know how that's going to happen? The Lord said his church would be a house of prayer for all people. And that is, or it's often translated all nations. And that word translated nations is the Greek word ethnos, from which we get our word ethnic. And he's not talking about nation or countries fighting each other. He's talking about ethnic conflict there. And that's one of the things he spoke of in Matthew 24 when he was asked the signs of these times. Nation would rise against nation. The word translated nation there is the same Greek word, ethnic, that we translate ethnic. And these are ethnic conflicts. Well, I tell you, one thing we've got to do to be the light of the world, we're called to be, we got to get rid of every semblance of that in our own heart. That understand how racism is an ultimate evil. And because it's built upon the two worst evils of the human heart, either fear or pride. We become a racist because we fear those who are different from us. Now, if we really know our God, who makes every snowflake different, made the races, made the different tribes and tongues and all of the nations, because it takes all of them together to reveal him. When it says he made man in his image, I think it was really meant to be mankind in his image, and it could have been translated mankind. It takes all of us together. God is so big, so expansive. And if we really understood how much we need to understand and learn from the different tribes and nations, and how his unity is a unity of diversity, not a unity of conformity. And racism undercuts that and thereby undercuts the revelation of who God is in people. I'm just saying. I've written books, booklets, and all on that, preached on it for many years. But we've got to review these things, and we've got to be delivered of it from our own heart. And I believe the spiritual bigotry is a worse problem than the physical, where we are just racist because of people having different colors, skin, or whatever. I tell you, the spiritual bigotry, where we're racist because we're afraid of denominations or such that are different from ours, we become fearful of them. The other deep evil of the human heart that is a foundation of racism is where we are become prideful that we're a part of a certain group and are thereby superior to others, or that others are inferior to us. That's racism, that's pride. And God will resist the proud and give his grace to the humble, as is said over and over in Scripture. We know that fundamental truth. So we've got to deal with the racism in us. And also, we shouldn't be racist about the other nations. We should have respect for all nations, for all people groups, and seek to learn from one another. But anyway, I just wanted to mention these things since I hadn't had a chance to rant for a while, and I needed to let some of it out as these things are happening, but so encouraged by the incredible response of our nation to Charles' assassination, where, I mean, it's unbelievable. I heard this morning, if I heard right, that Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, the organization he founded and raised up, now has about 120,000 applications for new chapters. Can you imagine that? I've never heard of anything like that. Nothing. As I said, when all this unfolded, Turn Point USA could become the biggest organization in our country. It may become the biggest on the planet. And I would be happy about that. We're submitting our applications to, understanding it's going to take them quite a while to process all these. So we're going to be patient, but we want to be a part of it. It's a great organization for reaching kids in schools and college students. It's truly remarkable. And I thought that his memorial service last Sunday was one of the most edifying, encouraging things I think I've ever seen. I sat there went home to watch some. I was watching it with some of the guys in the man cave, and I think we watched it beginning to end. I think we actually started before it began, and it had gone between 5 hours, and I didn't want it to end. I'm glad I was able to tape it and can watch it again, which I plan to do. But I tell you that could be Charlie Kirk's death, his martyrdom, could be the spark that ignites the harvest that is the end of the age. Greatest harvest the world has ever seen or will see. The ingathering of new souls to the kingdom. And it is, every indication is it's waning. It's still growing. The impact of that is the impact of that incredible young man who laid down his life, for the Lord. I believe he did that. I believe he lived that to risk his life continually, which he did almost every day, to preach, to share, to dialogue with people that disagreed with him. And he had such remarkable wisdom for that. But, as Frank Turk shared during the memorial service, I thought it went possibly the most important thing said, even though I believe it was remarkable about Erica forgiving the assassin and saying that, and that was truly crucial and important too. But one thing Frank said, he said, Charlie's not standing in front of the Lord now because he laid down his life for the Lord, but he's standing there because the Lord laid down his life for Charlie and for all of us. And that's the biggest takeaway of all. The very first Christian martyr was Christ himself. And everything we walk in and get to see and experience in these times, and the great ingathering and everything else that's happening, and the incredible life we've been given. I believe the true Christian life is certainly the greatest adventure you can live on this earth. Not to mention all we get for eternity. Let us never forget, it's because of what Jesus did for us, that anyone who lays down their life for him, it's because he did it first. And he did it for us. Don't ever forget that. Thank him every day. That's one thing I certainly try to thank him for every single day. And we'll be thanking him for eternity for that. And eternity won't be long enough where we're still going to feel we need to thank him. Such an awesome thing was given to us by Jesus, by our Creator, by our Father, that he so loved the world. He sent his Son for our redemption and reconciliation. Anyway, thank you for listening to today's rant. And as I say continually, hopefully I'll get to being able to do this more frequently and can make them shorter. But thank you for tuning in to today's rant.
Marxism. It is the most evil, deadly, and totalitarian philosophy of government in history. Marxist governments have murdered more than 100 million of their own citizens in the 20th century alone in a sinister effort to purge nonconformists. Today, America faces an unprecedented threat from Marxists entrenched in our universities, our media and entertainment industries, and even in our own government officials. As believers, what can we do about this growing threat? This book exposes the 45-point plan of Marxism for taking over America and offers clear strategy for defeating it to restore America to its true foundations.
In 1987, I had a 2.5-day experience in which I was shown a panoramic vision of what is to come, which I wrote about in this book, The Harvest. I saw a harvest coming like the world never seen. The Lord showed me 2 waves of revival. The first one that I saw was going to be the greatest harvest the church had yet experienced. Now, I'm talking about from the original day of Pentecost until now. It was that big. But it was only the reaping of the laborers who were going to be the laborers in a coming much greater harvest.